Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. So Trump is right. I don't say that often. So record this video, record this audio. Trump, in this very specific case, is absolutely right. On Twitter, Trump says, "Why did the DNC refuse to turn over its server to the FBI and still hasn't? It's all a big scam. An excuse for losing the election. It is all a big scam, an excuse to losing the election." Donald Trump is absolutely, completely, unequivocally correct. It is a scam, an excuse for losing the election. Now, the amazing part of this, Jake Tapper comes on and says, "Some of you will hate to hear this, but the first part of this is a legit question, DNC. What's the answer? You're the DNC. You claim, God damn it, Russia hacked us. A foreign government hacked us. I'm going to pay this entity to do an investigation. Here's some money. I'm doing an investigation for us. Did Russia hack us? Russia hacked us? Yes, Russia hacked us. See, they said it. They said Russia hacked us. Wait a minute. Why are you paying somebody to do that? We have the Federal Bureau of Investigations. We have the NSA. We have all sorts of agencies that could do that. The FBI is even geared to do it. Why haven't you turned over your servers to the FBI so the FBI can do what they're supposed to do? Why? That seems bizarre. That seems peculiar. That's a little weird. Now, the organization that you have, CrowdStrike, that did the analysis, they're being shot down left and right. They've been found to be fallible. Why haven't you turned over your servers to the FBI? That question rings and it waits. Nobody has an answer. Now, he's right on the other point. This is all a big scam to obfuscate why you lost. Now, most people, most parties, most functional parties, when they lose on this scale, when they lose 66 out of 99 state legislatures, 66 out of 99 are owned by Republicans. Owned. House, Senate, Supreme Court, owned by Republicans. Owned. Now, that is a failure on a level that has not been talked about and has never been discussed in philosophical circles. There's no concept of it. There's no concept. They've broken this line between the philosophical thing that your mind can comprehend and the reality of this level of failure. That's where the Democratic Party lays. Now, most people will say, well, wait a minute. How did this happen? How did this happen? Why are we so hated? Why do people disgust? Why are they disgusted with us to this degree? Where they will put in a reality show host as president of the United States over our perfectly shiny candidate. That's an interesting question. That's a pertinent question and it should be asked. That's not asked. Instead, what was asked was no question at all. It was Russia. Russia did it. Declarative statements. Russia did it. None. No introspection whatsoever. Russia, Trump, Russia, Trump. That's all we want to talk about. What's wrong with the party? We want to talk about Russia and Trump. Hey, you knifed Keith Ellison in the back in order to get in Perez. Russia and Trump. Stick with the narrative. We can all agree on Russia and Trump. That's essentially what's taking place. All of this is to obfuscate what's going on with the party itself. That party is tearing itself apart. 15 million people left the Democratic Party. Phew. Gone. Disgusted. Not just disgusted, hateful of that party. Like, that's the part that burns. Like, it's one thing if you had just people just say, okay, I'm not feeling the Democratic Party. It's another thing we have a section of that party who don't even consider themselves part of your party and are adamantly spiteful of that party. That's problematic. It's problematic. Now, you're in a somewhat of a pickle, right? You're somewhat of a pickle. So what do? We don't want to talk about us. We just want to talk about them. So we're going to be united. We're going to talk about how united we are. No, we're not going to pay attention to the Civil War. We're going to talk about how united we are. Yes, I know our candidates are going to primary, but we're united. And we're going to just continue to talk this way. That's programmed, repetitive language that had no meaning associated with it. Not fully realizing that roboticness, saying things that are completely untrue or untethered to their actions, is why they're out of power in the first place. You can't talk like FDR and then govern like Ronald Reagan. People are going to find you to be a liar. And when they're going to find you to be a liar, they're not going to vote for you because they find you to be a liar, even if it means the Republican taking office. The voting demographic is going down less and less and less each year, with the exception of 2008. Obama, a black president, and it proceeded to go down after it again. People understand on a gut level that what they do, how they vote, is in no way tethered to the legislation that takes place in D.C. They understand that these people are bought, and that the things that they do, for the most part, cater to the people who are paying them. That's bribery. That's what takes place. Now, if you're a Democrat, you have a problem. There's no conflict in Republicans being who they are in that sense. They can take that money and they're going to do those bad things because they're representing their philosophical interests of the rich. You may have some people who are dumb enough to vote for them, but they're representing their philosophical interests of the rich. But you, Democrats, you have a different philosophical interest. The vehicle of the left. This includes the radicals. This includes the radicals, the people who are anarchists, the people who don't necessarily want to conform, who don't necessarily like the way you've been running things, even from a level of being able to compromise with you. Take it to another level. You also now have corporate interests. So you can see the problem. How are you going to satisfy both interests? They're in conflict with one another. The leftists despise that corporate interest. That corporate interests despise those leftists because they understand that if the leftists get what they want, it's going to adversely affect their profits, or at the very least the money they stuff into their pockets. Their profits will be fine. You can see the problem. Meaning if you're going to thread the needle, you're going to have to be a milquetoast Democrat. You're going to call yourself a moderate, and you're going to talk in ways that sound ridiculous, even though you know you're going to be doing the bidding of the people who are paying you. So there's only so much you can say. So when Bernie Sanders gets out there and says, we're going to tackle the plutocrats, or he said the elites, and I'm waiting for him to scream out bourgeois, but that might have been too far. When Sanders gets out there and says that, Tom Perez sets himself on fire, runs around the studio, and gets out of Dodge. Because Tom Perez knows damn well he can't say that because the people who are stuffing money in Tom Perez's G-string will be mainly offended. So he can't talk that way. So you have these guys who are robots. They seem ridiculous. They talk in these generic terms that don't mean anything, and ultimately it gives you at best status quo. People are tired of status quo. If you don't want to address that in your particular party, that's a problem. Now, the way you deal with that problem is just screaming Russia. You just attack on one particular front. Donald Trump is perfectly correct here. He's perfectly correct. It's a scam. We need to see the evidence. We need to see the evidence. See, the problem for Trump is the game space that he's playing in constricts his behavior to some degree. If you're going to play in part of the U.S. government, if the FBI says something, you're probably going to have to take the FBI's word for it because the FBI is that mechanism in your game space that gives you that particular information. Now, you can blow the information off and say you don't believe it, but that's a problem. The Democrats are attacking you on this very specific point of Russia. If you blow it off because you say it's ridiculous, which it is ridiculous, it makes you look somewhat guilty. So you can't do that. Meaning your behavior, what you can do is somewhat constricted, even though this narrative may be ridiculous. The other agencies are going off of a report from crowdsource or CrowdStrike, whatever it's called. And yet they're taking it as the word of God and have used that to say Russia has something to do with the hacking. It's amazing. You would think that they want to see it, what that evidence is before they're going as far as to attack Russia. They still got to make this point. So what? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? You're going to have some kind of military action against Russia? You're going to start a nuclear war? How many elections have we got involved in? How many governments have we toppled How many governments have we destroyed? How many countries have we destroyed? Let's be honest. Let's be honest. If you're going to ratchet up this thing with Russia on false pretenses, at least be honest in your own behavior. Behaving the same way. You're mad because somebody else behaved in the way that you behave towards other governments? It just doesn't fly. Like, I'm amazed that the American public looks at this with any level of other than just amusement. You have no clothes. I don't understand how you're making this particular complaint, so much so as you're ratcheting up tensions with a nuclear nation. But Donald Trump is right here. He's right. It's bogus. Now, they may have something. Russia may have did something, but whether or not there was some kind of collusion between the two, they have no evidence of that at all. I've seen nothing to suggest that Trump worked with Putin. Even if Putin had something to do with it, he had a just cause to do it. And I'm saying from his perspective. Because understand, from his perspective, you had somebody who was going to start a nuclear war. You had another person who was being conciliatory. Which one would you want? Which one would you want? Logically, which one would you want? And if you had some capacity to try to affect that, would you try to affect that? Particularly if you thought a nuclear war was on the other side of that coin. Yes. Yes. Would you also do that if you thought that this guy was somewhat of a comic book character and you could manipulate him? Yes. Of course, yes. Putin is in charge of a government. Governments behave in particular ways. Do you believe that if the United States was in the exact same situation, that the United States wouldn't have done the exact same thing? That's the question. That's the honest question. Do you believe that us destroying Libya is in some way better than or equal to meddling in somebody's election? Do you believe destroying Iraq was somehow better than or equal to? Do you believe trying to undermine Syria was better than or equal to? I'm making this point that if you're saying that meddling in the election is this horrible offense, so much so that it may even dictate military action, what does it account for us destroying governments and destroying countries, turning those countries into fires, people being killed and sold in slave trades? That's our behavior. But we're willing to go to war with Russia over hacking of some sort. All right. Yeah, Trump's right. Trump's right. This is a waste of time. Democrats need to deal with their own stuff. They don't want to deal with their own stuff, so they just want to talk about Trump and Russia. Also, this is the second point. They want to tie his hands. They want to tie him up in regards to what he could do in that office. They want to scream, fire, look at the fire, look at the fire that we want the world to look. Meaning they want the public to pay attention to what the fuck is going on. I am torn on this front. I think he's a danger. I think Donald Trump is a danger. Now, I think a lot of the stuff that people have been complaining about is comical because Obama was doing the same thing and they didn't say squat. They didn't say squat. Oh, please, we need to do something about him banning Muslims, but it's okay for Obama to kill those same Muslims. Come on. Be honest. Be honest. You guys fall asleep when there's a Democratic person in that office and you pay no mind to the things that he does. He has a nice smile, he walks a particular way, and he makes you feel comfortable. And when he makes you feel comfortable, you blissfully go to sleep. He was murdering civilians up to the degree of 90%. Think about that. The guy who you thought was fucking awesome was out there murdering civilians. You can't even say he was fighting terrorism. He was just killing people. But he was okay. Trump gets in that office and the world is falling apart. Donald Trump is right. Democrats need to deal with their own shit. If 15 million people leave the party, if you guys continue to lose, you put $25 million in the Ossoff, who was a goddamn robot and was trying to be a Republican, and he lost. He lost. $20 million. You could have burned everyone on the line. How many people could you have fed for that money? How many people could you have put in decent housing, clothing, job support? $20 million. And you lost. Bernie Sanders gave you the recipe to run. You believe that Trump is going to be so bad that you can just take over without ever having to deal with your own stuff. So if you can scream Russia and Trump long enough, what's the matter with you may go away. It's not. It's not going anywhere. It's going to stay here and it's going to linger like a bad smell. And you can only go so far with this Trump thing. And if Pence get in office, you are going to be crushed. If you honestly find some way to get Trump out that office, Pence is going to be the doom of the Democratic Party. He is going to fall in like a slot, whether you realize it or not. Donald Trump is your best friend. He's a pain in the ass to deal with. He is a kleptocrat, and he is a flaming head in regards to what the Republican Party is while he's in that office. You screaming Trump and Russia, it draws attention to it, but it's not helping your cause. I'm just saying it's not helping your cause. The guy who was helping your cause was Bernie Sanders, meaning the philosophical basis of this particular party was the thing that would have gotten this party in a decent position. You don't want to do that. You believe you don't have to do that. You believe you don't have to have that conversation if you can wait and get to the point where you get back in some degree of power without having that conversation. Meaning, if you can have this wave in 2018, then you don't have to talk about you and the problems with your party. I don't think that's going to work, but we'll see. We'll see. I think you're being primaried right now. I think you have multiple organizations trying to topple many of the guys who you guys have in office. Yes, you're going to co-opt a lot of people with resistance nonsense. But you have a lot of militant people who are antagonistic towards your party, who used to be part of your party. And that will be problematic. I guarantee you. That will be problematic. They may not be able to organize themselves into something that can take you down immediately. But the fact that those people are out there and those people exist is problematic for your party. They're to the left of you. And we've already seen that people to the left of you will pull independents and it will pull Democrats. Meaning if those people can organize themselves into any legitimate way that can cohesively organize around a party, you are toast. You're toast. So, all right. I'll leave it at that. If you enjoy the content, feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support the work through Patreon. Thanks, guys.